Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke, reaching out to you, talking with you, and talking about something really neat. Today we are talking about the Dell PowerEdge R805. Now this bad boy is pretty simplistic. I got this on the web on eBay for 60 bucks, and I'll explain that to you later. But we're dealing with the system here that is really great for introduction to SMP based processing. That's basically symmetric multi-processing. And symmetric mode processing is where you have dual busing, dual processors, hyper-thread technologies. And this 805, the baseline Opteron processors in this particular configuration, introduce you to the nature of hyper-threading, and it's just a really great, cheap starter for somebody who just wants to build and start working with the capacity of their systems. So what we built is a system that has USB 1.0, 2.0 variant, VGA, DVD player, and that's pretty much it on the front. There is no ability to reconfigure this for drive bays. So whatever you do, it's going to be probably an external device. Now, stand by for a second, I'll flip this. Okay, and now on the back end here, now remember, I only got this for $60. But if you look, we've got a couple of dual 1 gigers here. We have the addendum add-on port switching for 4 additional 1 gigers out here. But if you look a little closer, those are the 1 gigers. These are the 10 gigers. Sweet. And of course, we have a host bus adapter here for a SAN interface. So this came from a SAN-based data center environment. And of course, it's dual powered with dual power supplies. And give me a second here and I'll open this up. But let me point out one other thing here. It does have the ICANN IRC set up here for remote administration. Not a fan of this, but it does exist. There's also a console input for serial consoling, and of course the standard VGA output. So with that being brought to the attention here, you know, without counting this interface, you've got a good standard baseline chassis to do everything from Linux all the way up to the latest, Server 2019 footprint. So hang on a second, let's open this bad boy up. So with this design, if you have any experience with the DX10s or the 710s or the Series 2s, or the HP DL series chassis and so on, you're going to understand that segmentation effect is part of the server build out. Segmentation basically means that you've got internal segmentation components that are not part of the main board, but are also not PCIe based interface cards. They're actually sub-daughter interfaces on the actual platform, as you can see here. So this is an older chassis, so it actually talks to the older nature of how all this began. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and pull off the air cover, expose the riser bridges and the card interfaces, and basically show how principally this system is designed. Okay, so what we've done here is we've pulled out the riser bridge cards out. We've removed the PCIe cards, like this HBAQ logic. And we pulled out, of course, the additional 1 giger dual port cards. And as you can look down here, you can begin to see the guides of what we call modulated motherboards. Now, modulated motherboards are functional boards without their modules. They will work. But as we begin the process of extracting the components here to expose the inner matrices of how this works, we can begin to see how the module interfacing works in regards to just the basic RAM motherboard and basic I/O. So here we have the main board. The main board carries 2 processors, Opteron series AMD. The Opteron series is basically split busing, which means you have basically 2 sets of banks of RAM, each dedicated, and you have to do them in parallel at the same time. So if you have dual processors on board, but only RAM in 1 bay, this isn't going to work right. So you want to make sure that you're taking the steps necessary to accomplish proper configuration using the DDR2 class RAM which is required for this particular chassis. Now I'm clearing the fans off because this is going to give you a better view of the modulation of the motherboard, because here is the motherboard end back here, and of course it goes all the way over to here. And outside the 10 gig NIC card here, which is a daughter bridge card, by the way, just like the ICAM interface for the remote administration with heavy encryption, these two ports, and the I/O, the base I/O, is operational. And that, by the way, also includes USB, which is right down here. And the add-on cards give nothing more than performance increases, more encrypted-based secure remote administration, and of course advanced storage options which you can work with. Now this is a RAID interface that's going to work with how the bus in the bay down here that actually houses and works with hard drives. And when I got this chassis, I did not get it with disks. That's okay, because frankly anything that's in the 805 probably not worth having as a usable hard drive. Using something a little bit more advanced like 15,000 or 10,000 is going to be more realistic. But the daughter add-in card is absolutely a must, and is most of the time usually by default there. But this is the only interface out there that is like that on these, as I understand it. Everything else you got to go out and you got to go buy. So with that being shown here, and you're seeing the nature of the modulation, this is just the beginning. On my more advanced chassis over here, such as the 710, that's the Dell. I know it has a Google front end, but that's an OEM DX-720 that you're looking at there. They take the modulation a lot farther than the initial design of the 700, or in this case the 800 and the 805. So by seeing this is actually surprisingly a very well designed board. If, and I repeat this carefully, if you don't use all the bloatware that Dell offers with their product lines. Yes, unfortunately there is some stuff you just can't get away with. You just have to have it, right? But the reality of the fact is, all the rest of it, all the assisted managers and all of that, no way. That's just stuff to link you and make you more dependent on Dell's services after and far beyond the capacity of just buying the hardware that you need in the software licensing. So down here you see a split bus power bus, and this is designed to provide one source of power, even though it may come from two independent sources, such as split power feeding, because you might have one power grid coming from one provider and another power grid coming from another power provider. This can allow you to do that, but the key detail here to remember is you only need the power of a single power supply. So that's not always the case with servers. Sometimes they absolutely require that you have two power supplies on board before they'll give maximum power output of the actual system itself, because they kind of went low on their cost for power supplies, and because they thought, hey, if we sell based on the ability of running only one processor with RAM memory, then that would be cool. But if you had two on board and you lost one of your power supplies, you would lose a core processor and a RAM bus, but you wouldn't lose the other. You could stay operational, but at an impact. Not acceptable in my book. If you're running 750 watts to run this, you run 750 watts to run this, and you have two 750 watt power supplies to meet the requirement. That's pretty simple math, isn't it? But you know how people are sometimes when they want to save a buck. So with this chassis, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 6.5. It's actually a pretty decent chassis, and the chassis is the fact that that key detail is it introduces the beginning and understanding of modulation to the motherboard, opposed to having a lot of the features already on the motherboard, or opposed to having all your features on many PCIe cards. There are a lot of companies that go those directions, but with this particular make and model and design, you'll find that this is actually really good designing. Even though it's an introduction design, if you bought one of these for 50 bucks, I say absolutely get it. You'll spend another 10, 15, 20, $30 for more memory, or maybe a couple of extra processors, because the processors are dirt cheap now. Everything for these machines is dirt cheap, because they're just being retired, and other people go out and buy them and use them for their personal home training, and or just to get exposure to some of those resources that they never could when they were in the data center. So with that being said, I would say about a 6.5. This is actually for my son. He's going to be working with this chassis. He's in IT for the Ohio Library Association, and he has a lot of responsibilities, and I got him this chassis so we could build it together and he could learn from the ground up the nature of how things work, understanding what it means to learn technology based on the protocol, not by the vendor's hardware, and give him a really good way of learning how to learn a great deal without killing yourself in the process. But anyways, at this point in stage, I am going to let you guys go. God bless, and I hope you guys get to hear from me more down the road since I'm feeling better. Not fighting the COVID thing anymore, and good Lord willing, none of you are as well. God bless, and I'll let you go. Bye-bye.